Hey comic book fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, yes, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do the countdown, episode number 122. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the countdown, it is a video series where I count down my least favorite comic of the week, going all the way down to that number one spot. And this week, guys, we have 20 comic books to talk about. So let's not waste any time and let's get started. So sorry in advance also if I might be a little bit brief on some of these issues, is I don't want the show to go on forever. So first off, we'll start off with the worst book of the week, right? Number 20. And number 20 goes to Secret Wars issue number 7. This is 7 of 9. This series has felt so disjointed at this point. Does anyone give a shit right now? Does anybody care? It's all about all new, all different Marvel now anyway. It would be a little bit different if all new Marvel Now, or whatever the hell you want to call it, wasn't released yet and people could see what was going on. But at this point, people don't really care what happened with Doctor Doom in so many ways and shape or form, or what goes on in his land. But this particular book was it was written horribly. I thought it was all disjointed. It was all over the place. The only thing that was going good for it is its artwork. The artwork is always great in this series. But this book has to deal with a whole bunch of the Barons going against Doctor Doom and everyone fighting each other, the Thors fighting each other, and it was just like, where's it going at this point? And it was all this distraction from Black Panther and Reed Richards, and all you get at the end was, once again, the zombies are heavily involved. And, I don't know, are they going to attack? Who gives a shit? I don't care anymore. I really don't. I really, really freaking don't. It was so aggravating to read this issue. I waited 5 months for this, or 3 months, or whatever the hell. Whatever. I'm not talking about it. That was number 20, and 1.5 stars for me. Definitely disappointed with that issue. Number 19. Another book that really didn't tickle my fancy this week, and that goes to The Ultimates, issue number 1. I didn't give this shot. I didn't give this issue a try. I read it and I hated it. I hated it before I even bought it. I sat there and said, who's on this team? Black Panther, Miss Marvel, or Captain Marvel, Miss America, and I think I bought it for her. And that was really it. I didn't like it. It was doomed from the start. I looked at the artwork at the store, and I was just like, oh, this art is like too sketched for me. It just seemed like incomplete art and just not enough coloring. I didn't connect to the story whatsoever. I had to deal with Galactus once again, where they have to try to, I guess, fix him before, I don't know, he starts eating planets again. I didn't love the facial expressions in here. I just thought that this had lots of boring dialogue. I couldn't connect to it. Not relatable characters for me. For me, this was the best part of this story, this one page right here. Otherwise, besides that, done. I could care less about this comic going forward. Comics have to really impress me right now. I mean, when you're buying 20 comics a week, and you can't do that every single week. So these books have to impress me. If they don't impress me, they're going to get cut. And so this will get cut as well. The Ultimates issue number 1 gets a 1 3/4 stars from me. All right, next we go on to number 18. And this was another waste of money for me this week. And there was some bad books that I read this week. And this is probably the worst countdown I've ever had when it comes to bad books. But the other books are really good that I like too. Next was the Dark Side War, Green Lantern issue number 1. I wanted to see what this had to do, what the Dark Side War had to offer to my favorite DC character, Hal Jordan. And it was crappy. It was so boring. The artwork was just not there for me. It was just rough. You got all these you got like Hal Jordan, young himself, talking to his, I guess it's his father in church, and you find out that there's these parademons that are attacking him that took over the Green Lantern Corps, and they're attacking him, and then he winds up getting the God Power Ring or whatever it is. And in the end of it all, and again, I did not like the artwork in this book. It was just very frustrating to not see facial expressions going on and just lack of detail for me. And I found the pacing of the book being interrupted between action and slow parts, and I just didn't like it. And in the end, he takes it, he wishes all the bad things away, and basically his Green Lantern Corps comes back and everything's all hunky-dory again. And that's basically the issue. That's really what it was. If you still haven't bought this, I don't think you have to waste your money on this. I thought this was a waste of time just for them to make some money on the whole Darkseid War thing. So far, the only Darkseid War issue that I read that was good was the Batman one. So this one was just god-awful boring. So I gave that one a 2 out of 5 stars. Next, we go on to number 17 this week. And number 17, for me, and some people may enjoy this series, but it's Spider-Gwen issue number 2. I wasn't a huge fan of Spider-Gwen series last volume, and this kind of just continues off of that last volume. And I wanted to see where they really went with this whole Peter Parker thing being the Lizard. And in this issue, it's still not resolved of what's going on, who actually is the Lizard or whatnot, or who's the real Lizard behind the whole crime. We thought it was Dr. Kirk Connors, but it really isn't in this book. And then we get introduced to the Captain America in this universe. And surprise, surprise, it's a female called Sam, and she's black. And this is one of these things that Marvel is constantly throwing the diversity in your face, saying, hey, this is Captain America, she's African American, and she's going to be that way in this series too. And it's just like, how many different versions of these characters are we going to get? And I'm to the point where I don't need so many of these versions of the Spider-Man or Spider-Woman. And Gwen Stacy's story, it's okay, but it's something for me that's not worth really considering going forward. You get to see this origin tale, or kinda the way Captain America was back in the day. That's a Sam. And again, it's okay, but I'm not even connected to the artwork in this. I think the artwork is okay. It has its own distinct feel, which I think is really neat. It's original that way. But at the same time, I don't like the facial expressions. I like the coloring in the book. I think that's what attracts me to it. But I'm not connecting to Spider-Gwen anymore. And I just feel like this is a series that I'm not going to enjoy for a long term. And I don't think I'm going to read it going forward. I think I'm actually going to drop it. Or if I do read it, I might read it digitally. But paying money for it for the $3.99 that it costs, it's just not for me. I think it's a very good idea. I think when Spider-Gwen was introduced to us in that first issue, that Spider-Verse issue, I thought it was a very interesting and unique idea. But now that the actual book is out, it's just not hitting me right. So again, I didn't like it that much. I'm giving it a 2.75 out of 5 stars, and it will be dropped as well. All right, next is another book that it's just, I used to love this book, and for this whole story arc, I have not enjoyed Robin Hood whatsoever. We got this whole Cabal thing going on. Another thing that's been going on is you've been finding out about this detective, and I'm trying to remember her name, which was Julia Gingrich. And they spent a lot on this particular character in this issue, and I found myself I'm not connecting to this character at all. She wasn't interesting to me. And Robin and Marion had to go after her and try to rescue her. And we find out that their whole headquarters winds up getting destroyed. And they have to go set up shop elsewhere. I felt that the issue itself, they tried to fit in a lot in this story. And the paneling and the dialogue were very small. And you get a lot of cram in this particular issue. So it felt like Patrick Shan this time around was just trying to finish up the story to get to the next story that's being told here. The artwork is okay, but it's not the artwork that I really loved in the beginning of the series or in the series when I read it in trade. cover art is beautiful in the book, and that's the way, you know, the book almost used to be. Right now, I'm not connecting to a lot of the characters. It's not, for me, it's not the same book it once was when it first launched. Will I still be reading it? I think I will always still read this, but I don't know if I'm always going to spend money on it. So Robin Hood issue number 16 gets an average rating of 3 out of 5 stars for me. All right. Next, we go on to number 15, and number 15 was Batman issue number 46. I'm up to the point now when it comes to Batman that I want to see more of Commissioner Gordon and what's going on in his adventure, but at the same time, I want Batman back. I want the real Batman in this comic book. And with the whole Mr. Bloom situation, I feel like his character is being a little bit, excuse me, I didn't talk right there, a little bit drawn out. I want to know where he comes from. I want to know more about the character. I want them to flesh out the character more, but they don't do it. They keep him so much of a mystery here. And it's just like, are we ever going to find out more about Mr. Bloom? And in this particular issue, you know, he goes and he starts going on this killing spree, on this crazy killing rampage. And, you know, him and Batman go on this battle. You think Batman's going to win, but that's not the case. Mr. Bloom winds up escaping in the issue. You get to see this whole little bounce wow wow stuff going on with Bruce Wayne and Jules in here, how he wants to get married, and there's this pretty close, almost X-rated sex shower scene going on with her and him in here. So he's busy playing family man. You got Duke that's in here as well. And you got Jerry Powers, who wants to create an army of Batman, which is the worst idea you could possibly happen. And at least Commissioner Gordon peels her back and says, hey, just give me one chance to stop this guy before you do this. So that was a good, cool moment in there. But at the same time, the story is just being dragged out, and I'm just like, I want it to end already, and I want it to get to issue 50. I know, like, I guess supposedly Capullo is taking a break from this book, but nevertheless, I want to see the next story arc. And it's the one thing that I have an issue with Scott Snyder, is that his story arcs are too long and they're too drawn out at times. And if it's not a story arc you like, you're going to be like, come on. But you always want to keep up with Batman and seeing what's happening with him. So, nevertheless, I gave this one a 3 1/4 out of 5 stars. You know, I was very intrigued and very psyched about Mr. Bloom. But ever since we never got like a true origin of this guy, it's like, how are they going to ever do it? You know, because I love origin stories, and especially about villains, and we don't get that here. And I really want that. We get more of family man Bruce Wayne. All right, going forward now, we go on to number 14 this week. And number 14 goes to, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Hold on one second. Goes to Grim Tales of Terror, Volume 2, Number 2. Grim Tales of Terror is always a bunch of one-shot stories, horror stories. And this time it had to do with the cask of Monty. And it was a good story. It had about a guy. It was almost predictable. It had about an old man who was married to this hot girl. And, he studied mummies, and he dug up mummies and things like that. And you got his predecessor there, or his apprentice, or whatever it is you want to call it. And he basically kills him, wraps him over the money, tries to take, credit for the whole thing. And the mummy comes back to life at the end. And then basically the two die, and they wind up ending up in a casket with each other, which I thought was pretty cool. That's how it ended up like that. And I was like, oh, that's pretty gory. And the guy finds him at the end. Entertaining, but nothing like fantastic this time around. The last story was really good with the Jekyll and Hyde story, and the next one looks good, where it's called Drop Dead Gorgeous. So it looks like it's going to be about this hot girl who thinks she's like this. She's probably a mean girl or something, and she gets real ugly, or she attracts bugs, or whatever it is. It looks intriguing. So, but this particular story, Wound up getting a 3 1/4 out of 5 stars. It was good, but it wasn't anything that just in there and said, wow, that was really good this time around. All right, so next goes on to number 13. And number 13 goes to a book that I haven't read yet. And it was G.I. Joe Cobra World Order. And this is like kind of like a new jumping on point. The Cobras are trying to come up with this particular plan to take over the world, and G.I. Joe is, I guess, they're limitless on what they can do. They have so many limits right now. It's a hard story to kind of get into if you haven't really read the series, but the artwork was pretty cool. You get to see some classic villains in here like Zartan. You get to see the Baroness in here. The best part of the issue came at the end, where you have Destro, if you remember, G.I. Joe, the cartoon, and Baroness. They're always an item, and they're always kind of trying to plot against Cobra Commander, and they want in on Cobra Commander's plans to take over the world, because he only was letting in a select few, and they threatened Cobra Commander's life when he was in the spa, which I thought was neat, and he's like, all right, you're in, you can be part of the gang. So I thought that was really cool character moments in there at the end. There's a lot to still be discovered in this story arc, as this was only part 1. I think this is worth reading if you are a G.I. Joe fan, especially a Cobra fan, and I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and that fell on number 13 this week. All right, number 12 this week goes to probably the lowest it's ever been on the countdown for me, and it was The Walking Dead, issue number 148. This has been a really slow time for The Walking Dead. I mean, I guess the comic and the show run together, because this week the comic was really slow, this week the show was really slow, and it made for a very boring issue. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you read The Walking Dead this time around, we wind up getting Lydia, who points a gun at Andrea. Carl almost sits there and kills Andrea by pointing a gun at her face because he's so freaking whipped by this girl, and then he finally comes to his senses, and they try to get, there's these trust issues going on with Lydia, and she's afraid that she's going to go back to where she came from. We also get to see the true personality out of Alpha, and you find out a little bit more about Alpha and how their group actually works. You find out in the issue that anybody can challenge the Alpha at any time, and if you win the battle or the fight, you become the new Alpha. So you find out that Lydia's mom, it doesn't take any chances, and there's a guy that's trying to console her, and he winds up slitting the dude's neck. And I thought that was pretty cool. So you find out a little bit more about her and about the Whisperers, and then you get the whole freaking town once again, who is still up Rick's ass about all their people getting killed, and Rick is so hesitant on what to do about taking on these Whisperers, because he knows if he takes on these Whisperers, they got a lot of people on their hands, and they got a horde of zombies that they can release and just destroy Alexandria at a moment. But the people don't care. They want revenge on the people that get killed in their community. So there's this big brawl that happens, and Rick doesn't know what to do. He's basically at his breaking point. And the last thing he does, the last resort that he does, is he winds up going to Negan, and he says, hey, I need your help. And you're like, fuck, Negan's coming there, and he's going to help. Rick. Now you know Rick is desperate. Good ending, but the overall issue was just, it's like taking forever now for the story to develop. But the thing is with Robin Kirkman is when you have a story that's really slow, the payoff is great. So I'm expecting big things by issue 150 here. So after I read this one, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right. So going forward now, we go on to number 11. And number 11 this week goes to Spider-Man 2099, issue number 3. This book was good. We get to see him, Miguel, basically go after this Chrono guy, who is a actual type of scientist that creates these robots, these drones, or whatever they are, and he's actually supposedly smarter than Dr. Doom, like he helped create Dr. Doom's Doombots or whatever it was. And you get to see this huge battle commence between these two guys. And in this issue, you get to see really the extent of anger that's on Miguel, the frustration, and how far he goes to cross the line as he was just about to kill this guy. And so what happens in the issue is that the guy winds up, I'm trying to remember what happens. Now, I haven't read it since Wednesday. I think he winds up killing the guy actually in the end. He winds up oh no, he doesn't kill the guy, sorry. He doesn't wind up killing the guy. We find out that there's a secret villain that actually cuts the tie, and he winds up dying, the villain. But Miguel was very close to killing him on his own, and he held back at the end. So Miguel has some crazy anger issues, which I talked about in the last issue, that is driving him mad. The funny thing is we find out that we see Tempest's mom in here, and we find out that Tempest is actually alive, and she's keeping him from Miguel. So that was a crazy cliffhanger. And what's going to develop here between Tempest's mom, Tempest, and Miguel, and you can see that Miguel is not the same character he once was. He has this lust for vengeance here. So good read, great cliffhanger. The villain here, the fight was kind of generic, but we'll see what happens with it. And I gave this one a 3.25 out of 5 stars. 3.75 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to cracking the top 10 this week out of these 20 comics. And next we talk about Superman American Alien issue number 1. It's a pretty good book. I liked it. You know, for hardcore Superman fans, you're probably going to be like, wow, this is the Superman. This is the Clark that I've known forever. And, you know, the actual cover here was a little bit, like, creepy looking, you know. Kid walking through the cornfields, you know, S symbol there. He's got his vision is lighting up a little bit. But then you go into the actual interior artwork, and it's like a cartoon. It's like you're watching this cartoon on TV or something. And I'm like, wow, the artwork's completely different from the cover. But it was a cool story. You know, you get to see how his parents actually helped him when he was a young boy trying to learn how to fly. How to fit in with the other kids. How he couldn't control his actual powers. And I thought that was a really nice story, and it was awesome the length that his parents went to help him develop his powers. And when he actually got his powers, you got to see that, you know, he winds up getting this, like, his shirt became like a cape. It was like his first cape ever, you know, and he's sitting there, he's like, Dad, Mom, look, you know, he's all excited. And it's just like you feel the enthusiasm like a young boy would when he flew for the first time. And he was so, you know, he's so lighthearted, and it was nice to see him interact with his parents. He's like, I can take you guys anywhere. I know I can fly. I can go more than 30 miles an hour. He was like so excited that he finally made that accomplishment. And this was a good book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a solid 3.75 out of 5 stars. You know, and spent the whole issue on him learning how to fly. I guess, you know, this is the first part of him growing up that they wanted you to learn. It was really close to being 4 stars, but there was a lot more books that I felt that I enjoyed than this one. But nevertheless, it was a good read, and I love Clark in this book and his family. All right, next we go on to number 9. And number 9 goes on to the Uncanny Avengers issue number 2. I kind of like this issue better than the last one. I think the series is starting to grow on me, even though we're on issue 2. And the artwork is starting to grow on me, even though I wasn't used to this style of Stegman's artwork. In this book, we find out about more what's going on with the whole Shredded Man thing as he's trying to take over the Earth and the plant life and everything else. And we get to see how Rogue and Snap still don't agree with each other in the actual book. You know, as we continue the whole mutant, humans, non-mutant things going on, inhuman things going on, interactions. And we find out that we have no scientist on board with this whole situation. And whenever you come to a scientific situation, there's always Reed Richards there. And since Reed wasn't there, Johnny Storm felt like he had to go to the greatest mind. So you get to see kind of like the struggle that he's still going through without his team there. So he gets a bunch of kids to help him, you know, diagnose what's going on. And also in the issue, you find out that this villain called the Shredded Man winds up trying to take over the world with his plants, and he captures Quicksilver, and we find out that there's some kind of time jump with like 50 years or so. And we find out that the person that makes his appearance here is Cable. And I was shocked to see Cable at the end of this. I was like, whoa, Cable? I'm like, that's awesome, you know. We don't see Spider-Man in this issue, so we're not sure if he's still part of the team or not, or what's going on here. But I guess in their replacement, we get Cable for now. And this could be kind of a promotion to get the Cable and Deadpool miniseries or whatever it is. I think that's coming out soon to promote it, because Deadpool's in this series, so you're going to see them interact with each other. But it was cool to see. But of course, yes, there's a time jump thing that's going on, and obviously Cable's going to save the day, you know, by trying to stop this Shredded Man, and I don't know, whatever his case is. But it still was a pretty good read. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. All right. Next, we go on to number 8. And number 8 goes to Batman and Robin Eternal, issue number 6. Good book here. This really goes back to Batman and Grayson on this mission about how they first tackled Scarecrow. Great artwork with Tony S. Daniel in here. Not sure if your copy was messed up like mine. Mine had a little bit of blurred words in it throughout the issue, so I don't know if that was a printing issue or whatnot. But nevertheless, the artwork was gorgeous in here, and we get to see them go on this mission about, you know, the first time they battled Scarecrow, and how actually Grayson, you know, always tries to live up to Batman, and he's very hard on himself in here. And we get to see certain situation going on with Mother, on how I'm trying to remember this one, I guess, millionaire guy that was talking with him was telling him how he got his wife, you know, I guess specified to his, you know, or modified to his specifications, and how Mother operates the whole situation. And then it looks like we see Orphan in the shadows there, and he basically told Bruce to be like, hey, it was just a joke, you know, I'm not telling you anything. So it was a pretty interesting issue to find out how Mother kind of operates certain things, and how she, you know, makes her money, and how she traffics these actual people. And in the issue, you also find out, I'm trying to remember what happens. You try to find out, no, I don't. You don't find out anything there. You try to get, and you get an idea of what Grayson is going to do with Cassandra and oh my God, Bluebird. So there, it looks like they're going on a mission. In this actual issue, you don't really get too much of what's going on in the current story, but you get what happened in the flashback part of it. So that's what you got there. So it's a cool book. It continues to be solid for me. Sorry if I don't remember all the elements here. I read it on Wednesday last week, and I gave this one, at the time, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's still a good book. The artwork's been really consistent, so I'm giving my hats off here to these guys for writing a good Batman story. All right, next we go on to number 7, and number 7 goes to Darth Vader, issue number 12. This is the whole conclusion that leads into all of Vader Down. In this issue, you finally get the wrap up of what happens with, you know, his little sidekick here that's been doing this mission for him, and Vader really covers his tracks well in this issue to get the Inspector to change his mind of letting go. I think her name was Afra? Yeah, Afra. And the thief winds up letting go, and he kind of, you know, goes after these rebels, because they felt like, what's more important, the thief or the rebels? And so the Inspector's like, you're right, you know, what is more important? We finally got the information about these particular rebels. So Darth Vader goes after these rebels, and he winds up, you know, destroying them. And we all think that everything's all hunky-dory with him. But we find out that this Grand General Moff Tarkin guy is on to Vader, like he's been spying with him the whole entire time, and he's about to sit there and give Vader up. So I think it's going to be pretty cool, and because you get to see that he's been spied on with cameras and everything else. So this is a cool issue, and I can't wait to see where Vader Down actually goes from here. So after reading this one, same thing, gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Good book. Yeah, a lot of books this week. All right, so now we go on to number 6. And number 6 was the Avengers issue number 1, all new, all different. A lot of people have been anticipating this book for a very long time. And now Mark Waid writes this book, and this is a very good book. However, it's not the story that I thought actually was going to be at first, because when we read that free comic book day issue back in May, that was a phenomenal read. Now, this book here was a good read, but in different areas of the book. It wasn't a completely great issue all the way through. In this book, you wind up opening it up with Kamala Khan and Nova, Sam Alexander, talking with each other. And she's like, "You're a jerk," you know, and it's like, oh, what's that about? And then what happens is you get Avengers Assemble. So you think you're going to really get the team assembling in the first issue, but you really don't get that. You only get pieces of it. And once again, we find out that, you know, Sam Alexander, he's the Captain America and everything. And we're going to talk about this on Comic Frontline, I'm sure. And he saves a whole bunch of Girl Scouts. And what happens in there is that he's under all this scrutiny because he's America's Captain America now. And he's Sam Wilson, and he has all this pressure on him. And it was cool interactions here between him and Tony Stark, and we get to see the Autobot Iron Man armor here as he gets the flying car and he transforms to this Iron Man armor, which I thought was pretty cool. I'll show you that in a little bit. But the villain wasn't very memorable. I think he's this he's not Kree. I thought he's Chitauri. He's a Chitauri villain in here, and I felt that the person that is in charge of the Avengers Tower wasn't fleshed out well. The villain comes from the Nova book where I saw him once, and I wasn't really interested in him. And they go and they do this this battle against him, and the book just kind of abruptly ended. Here's that Autobot Iron Man armor in there, which I thought was pretty cool. But you didn't see enough of Miles in here. They get into this scuffle, and you get to see this like very generic ending with the villain on top of the good guys, thinking that, oh yeah, they're dead, but they're not dead. We all know what happens. And you only got to see 3 of the Avengers here compared to all the other Avengers that should be in this book. Now I know this will be, you know, this first story arc will drag out for a little bit, you know, on getting the whole team together, but you only got a few of them. Then what happens is they decide to do like a separate story, which I thought was kind of weird. And this happened 6 weeks ago as you get to see the introduction to Kamala and Sam Alexander on them with each other for the first time, interacting with each other for the first time. And I thought this was a cool story, and this is what made the story for me, because I loved seeing these two interact with each other. I love the Nova book. I love the Miss Marvel series, and I just thought the awkwardness there was a little bit, was pretty cool, and I enjoyed it a lot. So after reading that one, I liked this part of the story better than the main story. However, it couldn't crack my top 5 because it wasn't consistent all the way through. Adam Kubert's art is awesome in this book, and I'm hoping it will get a little bit better, but still solid book. Number 5, 4 out of 5, number 6 this week on the countdown. Sorry, I'm trying not to make this video too long, so if my words are a little slurred or I'm trying to talk before I think, I apologize. So, all right, next we go on to number 5 this week. And I think number 5 is a really good book, and it's a great series. And this is Starfire, issue number 6. I think this book is awesome. I think Corey here is just a real fleshed out character. They're fleshing it out really well. You get to know a little bit more about this character. Each issue, you get to know about her personality here. And in this issue, you get to see her hang out with her actual, I guess what's going to be her future boyfriend or current boyfriend by the name of Soul. And you wind up seeing that she does this battle against this guy that's got these blue eyes. that I guess got sick and starts killing people, and he's not in control of himself. And Corey doesn't have the heart to really kill anybody. She's trying to change who she is. She's very strong, and it was great character interactions between what she saw through this person's eyes. And it was great to see the other side of this story, where we get to see this bounty hunter that goes to planet Earth to actually hunt her down. And you can see how protective she is of Soul. She finds herself actually really lucky to be with him, that she has him as a friend. And so since he was rescued, they wind up going out for pancakes, and they have a good time with each other. And then right as things, start to get nice between these two, well, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. You get the bounty hunter that comes in and tries to beat her ass, but that role is reversed here, as she really freaking takes it to him. I mean, it really showed the reader how strong she really is, and how she can destroy anybody at will. I mean, she's Superman powerful. I mean, she is strong, but she contains herself. She doesn't kill him. She basically sends him off to the galaxy, and if anyone came across the ship, as a warning. I love the battle scenes, and I love the artwork here by what the artist's name is, Tom Napolitano. I think that's what it is. I'm sorry, Emmanuel Lapacino. Yeah, sorry. Gorgeous artwork, great coloring, great book. Overall, just an awesome book. However, what this didn't get higher for me was because Grayson shows up in the issue. I'm like, dude, Grayson, you're all over the freaking place, dude. I'm tired of your ass. He's like, oh, look, I haven't seen Corey in a long time. She's going to be happy to see me. I'm like, thanks, Grayson. Thanks for showing up everywhere. Like, I get it's, he's back and everything, but I was like, hey, he just happens to go to Key West. So, nevertheless, though, it was a good read. 4.25 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 4 this week. And number 4 was Carnage, issue number 1. Good book. I was anticipating this book. Didn't know how it was going to be, though. It sold me on the previous issue, the way the artwork was. It's really creepy and gritty, really just like how Cletus Cassidy is. And when I opened it up, I'm like, please be good, please be good, please be good. Because Jerry Conway's the writer here, and if there's anybody to stick on a Spider-Man book, it has to be him, because he's written so many Spider-Man stories over his years. It was just like, I hope he does good here. And it was really good. I thought Cletus Cassidy was very much in character. He's this psychotic guy, who's just killed millions and millions of people. You wind up seeing the person in the beginning of this issue is alive, and it's one of the first people that survived his mass killing. And he gets all freaky when they don't call his name right, because he wants respect. And the artwork is, again, great. I think that Carnage is just drawn in a way that freaks you out, that would scare you if you saw him for the first time. That's the way Carnage should be drawn. But in this issue, you find out that Colonel Jameson is in here, J. Jonah's son, as working for the military. And you find out that Eddie Brock is in this series as well, and he's Toxin, and he's kind of like how Venom was. He's working for the government. It's controlled under this medication, and they have this plan to stop Carnage, luring him in. And I thought Eddie Brock was awesome in here, because when things start to go wrong, when they don't capture Carnage in here, you wind up finding out it's like Eddie's just like, put me in, coach. Time for the Hail Mary, coach. You might want to consider other options, coach. He's like, he wants to get in. He like wants to defeat Carnage so bad. And the book does a good description on describing who Carnage is, who Venom is, where they came from, and things like that. And I thought it was really well done. Again, nice action scene here. I really enjoyed this book. And at the end of it, you wind up finding out that Carnage kind of escapes, which is predictable. And they have to go in after him deep in these mine shafts. So it's kind of like, okay, send in Eddie Brock. I want to see a battle between, Toxin and Carnage. I want to see that. And it's really awesome, I think, this book. And here's the cover of the next issue. So I really liked it. I liked how there's Spider-Man cast in here with Eddie Brock. Jameson's in here. Obviously Cletus Cassidy is, and it has me intrigued. I want to see where it goes. So again, I think that this could be a very good series going forward. So after I read this one, I give this one 4.25 out of 5 stars as well. It's a good book. All right, next book. Going on to number 3. So we're cracking the top 3. This gets a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me, and this is Web Warriors issue number 1. I thought I would hate this book. Honestly, this was surprisingly good. I hated the Secret Wars story, and I hated the whole artwork in that story. Now, the artwork at first, I didn't like, but as you do read it, and I was talking with this to my good friend Kat Comic Uno, she's like, as you read it, the artwork grows on you, and eventually it fits the book. And I agree with her. I thought the more I read, the better the artwork got for me, and I got used to it. I thought Gwen and Mayday were drawn very well in here, and I thought the character interactions between those two Spider-Women were great. I thought the rest of the team was okay, but you get an idea of why the team is there and what their chemistry is, which I thought was really cool. And you get to see them go on a training mission, and in the beginning, on defeating like Scorpion and Dr. Octopus from like the cartoon world, which I thought was really neat. And again, you get to see the cool interactions between Mayday and Gwen, which if you're a Mayday Parker fan, I think you're going to like that she's actually in a book. And she's in a full book, full time. So I thought this was really cool. And you find them going against an Electro. But as you read the book, it's not like, hey, I'm fighting one Electro. I'm not fighting 2 different Electros. Some way, somehow, there's an Electro web, and it only consists of Electros. And I was like, what the hell is that? So we have a whole spider web, and now we have a whole Electro web of characters? I thought that was hilarious, and I can't wait to see where that goes. You get a backup story here of like steampunk Spider Lady or Lady Spider, which I really enjoyed in Spider-Verse. I really liked the character, and she was in this series as well on her own story. And so when I read her book, with her little story here, I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And I really like the artwork in this issue. And here we have steampunk Felicia Harding in here. I thought it was really neat, and she set up this whole con on saying that Lady Spider is a menace, and she's the one that stole all this artwork and stuff like that. So I thought that was really neat. And then at the end of the book, you wind up getting a good description of all the spiders that are actually in this series going forward. In case you didn't read Spider-Verse, for once we get something that, hey, all new, all different Marvel, we get Web Warriors in here. But we get that you might not know these characters from Spider-Verse, so they finally get you some origin of these characters on where they came from. So I really like that part, that they did that for the readers. So my hat's off to this particular issue. I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Can't wait to read more and read Lady Spider in there too. All right, now we go on to number 2. This is the nitty-gritty. This could be the one that you may think, wow, Mike, I can't believe this was not your number 1. Why isn't it your number 1? Or I understand why it's not your number 1, but what could be your number 1? You got all that? All right, here we go. So, first things first, my number 2 book of the week goes to All New Wolverine issue number 1. Thought it was a good book. Good story here. Great character development. And that's what Tom Taylor does best. I think he does a great job when, he breaks down a character and he really goes into detail on making you go through the experience of what a character goes through. And that was really described well here when it came to Wolverine's or Laura's actual healing factor. She gets blown up by a freaking bazooka in the beginning of this book, and she goes through a flashback of her being mentored by Wolverine here. Now, some people may say, oh, I wish Wolverine wasn't so, fatherly figure type in this particular scene, but I can understand where it comes from, because he became a mentor towards the end of his, young life. Now he's old and he's from Secret Wars, so whatever. I guess he's a different Wolverine. But nevertheless, when she wakes up, again, Tom Taylor really goes out of his way to sit there and say, this is what happens to Laura when she's healing. So her brain is healing, and she's like, huh? Rain? Oh, this feels weird, So it's like she's experiencing things for the first time all over again. Now, you also get in this series that you find out that Angel, yes, is her boyfriend. However, the one thing that if you haven't read Black Vortex or all Uncanny X-Men, you're not going to know what happened with Angel, because he doesn't look like the Angel we've all known with the feathers and all this other stuff. He's become cosmic based off of Black Vortex, but you wouldn't know that if you're new to this. But nevertheless, you get to see him interact with Laura in this book, and the interactions between the two were great. And Laura goes after this terrorist here in this white mask, and you're not sure who the terrorist actually is in the beginning, but they have no feeling, and the terrorist winds up committing this suicide, and it's funny how it takes place in Paris, which is crazy, and she commits suicide. Angel comes to her rescue here and saves her, and the interactions between the two were great. He really shows off her feelings, or his feelings to her, and she's like, this is kind of not a great time, right when I could actually die, and she takes out this drone that was, flying over Paris or whatnot, and you get to see great action scenes here and whatnot, which I thought was fun. And again, you get to see her go through the pain that she suffers during her mission, which was neat. And I thought all those things were great. But the one thing that I don't want to say I was upset about it, but I was. It was like we reveal the villain here, and it winds up being herself. And I know it's some kind of character development thing, I'm sure, and that's what I can appreciate from Tom Taylor, but at the same time, I didn't want the first story arc to deal with a clone. I mean, we deal with clones all the time, especially with Wolverine, especially when we dealt with the death of Wolverine, and then we went on to that Wolverine ongoing series, and it's like, hey, we got a new Wolverine book, and there you go. There's your clone. I was like, and again, I know it's a developmental thing when it comes to Laura, but I just didn't like that part of the story, and that's why it just didn't get number one for me, because I felt like, in a way, it's almost like we've seen the clone thing before. But nevertheless, it's a good book, and Tom Taylor does a great job with both characters in here. Now, how much is Angel going to be a supporting cast member in her book? I'm not sure, but it was great to see these two interact with each other, and I do want to see it more. So that's why I got number 2. That's why I got 4.5 out of 5 stars. And now we go on to the number 1 book of the week. And the number 1 book of the week goes to, and this was a surprising read for me, and this was different for me, and that's why this got number 1 for me, and it goes to the Illuminati issue number 1. I really enjoyed this book. Now, it didn't get 5 stars. It got 4 3/4 out of 5 stars for me. However, the reason why I didn't get that 5 stars is the artwork may be turning off for some of you out here. I think at times I thought the artwork was really good. I thought the facial expressions were good. Reminds you a little bit about Batgirl in a way in the series. But then other times the facial expressions were kind of weird, like She-Hulk's here. There it's kind of a little scary. I'm a little bit turned off by She-Hulk. But then, when you see her in another page, like right here, she's very concerning and looks genuine here, But I like when a book can show you emotion because you can read a character on what's going on there. You can see that she's angry and upset and pissed off, and she's going through a tough time there. And I liked how the book displayed like characters' powers in here as well, like Iron Fist's powers. You get to see like he's got the mystical dragon behind him as he battles Titania here. So I thought that was really neat. But then again, at other times you get, Luke Cage there who looks really weird and stiff and scary, So I was like, what's going on there with Luke Cage? But overall, it's good artwork, and I liked it. I did enjoy it. Now, the story overall I thought was quite interesting because it takes you, it makes you care about a character that you may have not read in a very long time. Now, I heard that she's been in a couple other series recently. I think Howard the Duck, but me, I didn't read that series. So I think that Joshua Williamson did a nice job at making you like Titania and feel for the character in here. She's married to Absorbing Man, which is Carl, and she wants to ride the straight line. She wants to, be good. And Jennifer Walters tries to help her, but since she's an Avenger and she feels that, she doesn't want charity from her, she sits there and doesn't want to take the help. And she explains to Jennifer, this is what it's like, when you're a bad guy and then you try to get the second chance and no one wants to hire a convict and things like that. And she really, you really felt bad for her, and you really felt genuinely for her that she wants to walk that straight line, But again, in the issue, she's forced to become the bad guy again. Red Hood makes her an offer that she kind of can't refuse in this issue. And really, it feels like by the time you get to the end of this book, Red Hood explains to her, yeah, you want to be part of the big wigs and you want to be part of the big time. And, he gives her a briefcase full of money or whatever it is. And but you don't know what Red Hood's real motive is in this particular issue. So it kind of leaves you cliffhanged with that, So where the book actually goes from here, I'm not sure. You get to see the cast of villains that do work with him. And is Titania going to be in the picture in the long run, or is he just going to use her and she's going to be casted out of the book? I don't know. We'll see. But this first issue really impressed me. It surprised me. And for me, this was an all-new, all-different Marvel title that I really enjoyed because, yes, it was all new and all different. And I gave that one, again, 4 3/4 out of 5 stars. So really cool here. So, guys, there you have it. There is the 51-minute, 20-book extravaganza countdown. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you watched the whole thing. If you did, thank you for sticking with me. Guys, you've seen the worst, you've seen the best, and you've seen all that other stuff in between. Now it's your turn to put down what your favorite comic book of the week was, what your least favorite comic book of the week was. And guys, as always, thank you for watching Comic Book Corner 2.0. Until that next comic book review, don't forget, check out Road to Comic of the Year, Group 2, coming up next. Take care, guys. See you soon. Bye.